All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you tuning in. Today we're going to do some woodsmanship, tracking and identification of animals. So I guess first off, woodsmanship is the ability to kind of go through the forest and understand what's going on as far as being able to track animals, identify animals, the natural process of the forest as far as spring, winter, fall, those types of things. And one of the things I think wildlife photographers struggle with, or at least a lot of them that I see, is the fact of identifying animals and actually being able to locate animals. So many times I'll see them actually just stick to the trails, and whatever comes along they photograph, but they don't really track them. They don't really know how to find them. So I'm going to try to give you 10 steps that will, or 10 tips that will help eliminate some of the confusion. Now, some of my background in the past, when I was a kid growing up, I used to fish, trap, and hunt, and so some of these skills kind of obviously transfer over to wildlife photography. But anyway, if you stick around, we'll get more into this. I'll start breaking some things down. So let's talk real quick. Some of the obvious things on your mind is why should you have to learn, the bushcraft or the woodsmanship, be able to track animals? I could just put a game cam down, is what you're probably thinking. Well, they are effective in some ways, but there's a lot of drawbacks to game cameras. One, they kind of trash the environment. They become more of a nuisance here in Nebraska. Sometimes they're illegal to even put up, but some of the drawbacks is you have to actually put them up and take them out. So there's 2 or 3 trips minimum. I mean, if you're just going to go for putting it up, taking a picture, taking it down, there's 2 trips right there. Obviously, if you're going to go back and forth over a period of course of a week or something, you're going to burn gas. A lot of people kind of peter out when they're using game cams. They'll put it up, maybe go back a few times, and they just leave it up. And so that being kind of trashing the forest, doing those kinds of things. They take batteries. People bolt them onto trees very tightly because they don't want them, people stealing them. So there's a whole slew of issues with game cameras. But when it comes to a game cam or a trail cam compared to woodsmanship of tracking and identification, they're kind of 2 different things, but you can save yourself some effort. So I've never used a game cam, to be honest. Most of the time I'm in the forest, I'll just be scouting around looking for things. So some of the benefits of being able to track and identify and locate animals is the fact that you're able to get in and get out of an area pretty quick. So you can analyze the environment and say, okay, does this have a lot of deer here, or does it have a lot of raccoon or mink or whatever the species you're looking at? So within an afternoon you can get in and get out and hopefully get a rough estimate. So it's good for one shots where you kind of go in, hike an area, scout it out, and you're in and you're out. You don't have to go back, kind of waste your time. And sometimes it's just not possible to go back to an area. You might have to go back in 6 months or a year, maybe, if you take that trip. So those are some of the benefits over trail cams. And speaking of trash, I got a deer stand right next to me that's been up probably for 10 or 15 years. Over to the east, this field is public hunting, and I'm going to take you back in the forest back here so we can look at some trails and that. But this is closed off to hunting, so a lot of the animals are still very, very scared of people. And rightfully so, with hunting going on here. It is the spring. It is probably 20 degrees, and in another month or 2, this forest will look nothing like what it is right now, simply from the growth. And I'll show you a couple pictures what this stuff looks like. It's almost, once you get in it, you can't really even photograph, and it is so thick. So anyway, I'll get you around. Let's talk. All right, to get started in animal identification, tracking, and that, you're probably gonna need 2 different things I would suggest. One, I have an actual app on my iPhone. It's called Eye Tracker. Not affiliated with them. I just seen it. It looked pretty good. It gives you the animal tracks, their sizes, classification for North America at least. I'm pretty sure they'll probably do it for most places. And then a book of some sort, like a big reference book. So Amazon's got a ton of them. I would suggest you get something pretty good quality. You want to look, if you're looking at a classification book, animal classification book, Look for something that has multiple signs, Sue, just not their paw prints or their tracks. Something that has maybe pictures of their animal droppings, their signs, their scratch marks they make on trees or something along those lines, their dens. Get something that's worthwhile. Now, you have to remember, these books, these reference material is just that. It's like a dictionary. It gives you everything possible that you have to consider, you know, across the board. So that becomes very, very problematic if you're trying to look for something. So a lot of times, for instance, the forest here that I'm in, I probably got only 20 or 30 animals that I really have to worry about. So some of these books have hundreds or thousands, and they could be 1,000 pages again. And so you kind of have to narrow this down. So the tips I'm going to give you, the methodology I'm going to give you is classification and elimination is the first part, and then it kind of goes from the different signs. So you have to think of this as this way, is a lot of times I don't get a good paw print or a good track, so I have to actually look at the ground, kind of get a partial print, and I have to be able to figure out from there. So I might go look for some different droppings, I might look for how the trail works, I might look for fur or some scratch marks, I might look at, then I can get a good indication of what's going on as far as what the population level is of that. And that's really what you're looking for, is, you know, if you see a lot of droppings in an area of a certain animal, that's a very good indication, but you got to be able to figure that out first. But I'll take you back here, let's get walking around, and yeah, we'll talk about the first 2 tips here out of 10 of what will get you rocking and rolling and kind of help eliminate the chaos. Okay, let's talk first tip. First thing to look forward to here is, or look into, is classification. 2 things. You know, when you find a track, a lot of times I'll ask someone if I'm messing around in the forest, we find a track, I'll say, hey, you know, what kind of track does this animal belong to? You know, what is this animal? You can kind of see going through their head. They're like, well, they're thinking of every animal possible. Like they're thinking African lions, they're thinking dingoes, they're thinking everything. Being North America, like I think I mentioned before, we only really have 20 animals. So you could just see the wheels turning, and it can be a daunting process when you really don't do the process of elimination. So some of the things we use here, or at least I use, is if I see a track or something that's a little bit off and it belongs to an animal, I'll ask, for the most part, you know, where I'm at, what location am I at? Is this water-based or is this land-based? And what I mean by that is, do I think it's a water-based animal or do I think it's a land-based animal? A lot of times I can figure out one way or the other just by my location. So if I'm by a swamp or somewhere that's got a lot of water, that gives me a little bit better indication. And let's say if I'm 6 miles into a cornfield, I'm in the prairies, let's say, you know, let's talk, you know, elk, antelope, prairie dogs. Those animals, obviously they like dry land. You know, muskrat, mink, beaver, raccoon, obviously those are more swamp-based, marsh-based animals. And so if you're in one of those environments, more than likely you can classification, elimination kind of thing. You know, is that thing, does it like water more than it likes land? That kind of situation where you can figure out and make somewhat of a determination. Not 100%, because some go back and forth, but at least you have a good indication of eliminating half of the possible things. So if you have 20 or 30 animals in an area of possibility, you got 15, right? So all right, let's talk the second step. So the first 2 we mentioned, land-based animal, water-based animal. 2. The next 3 is an animal size print, or is the animal small, medium, and large. So obviously, you know, I put footprints like a quarter size of something or smaller, silver dollar maybe, something along those lines. So something small here in North America is going to be 0 to 8 pounds. Something medium size is going to be 8 to 55 pounds. And something large, obviously, is 55 pounds all the way up to thousands of pounds. So something small, quarter size animal track, you know, squirrel, rabbit, mink, muskrat, something medium size, beaver, coyote, fox, raccoon, badger. Something larger size, obviously, you're talking, you know, deer, elk, antelope, mountain lion, that kind of thing. So knowing that, you can kind of look, and if you get a small track, you can kind of compare it against something that you have. And once you get a basis for 1 or 2 animals, the rest will kind of fall into place. The other thing that helps give it away is if you can find like a muddy or snowy area, especially muds work, like a really sloppy mud. Animal tracks appear to be a little bit bigger because the animals spread their paws out to not sink in the mud so much. But that at least gives you a rough indication. You're able to be able to get a good print, and it's the depth of the print as well. So if it's muddy, you know, muskrat, mink, and these small animals, they're really good about kind of just going on the surface of snow, and that they have to survive because they're getting chased by other animals. So they don't sink in nearly as much as a coyote, and that's what keeps them alive. And if you look at the mud, you're able to look at how far down the animal sinks. Obviously, something like us, a 200-pound guy, you put him in mud, he's going to go in 2 or 3 inches. A 50-pound animal is going to maybe go in a ½ inch, quarter inch if it's really sloppy, and a muskrat or mink maybe not even a 1/5 of an inch or something. It's just something really small. So you're able to figure out. I know it's common sense, but a lot of people just don't use that when they're actually looking at that. Like, wow, what could that be? Well, it's obviously small, so you could use that as a classification. So we got 5 things right now: water-based, land-based, small, medium, large, that we can use to figure out what this animal is if we come across some signs. I hope that helps. Now let's get into the fun part. It was actually looking for signs, looking for pieces that we can use to actually locate the animal. So, you know, where can we find these signs? You know, where are the best places to find these signs? That's the fun part. All right, first tracking piece. Obviously trails, common sense, right? So what you want to try to do is find where you have the most trails intersecting. It's common sense, I know, but sometimes it just kind of escapes us. Back here is a trail. I got a main trail here. I got some trails back there. Have another trail there. So we have about 3 or 4 trails, deer trails. This would be a fairly decent ambush point if you were to find out where you want to set up to photograph them coming through. Now in another month, this area will be totally not photographic. So much weeds, so much undercover. But looking for signs when you have intersecting trails, obviously that is a big bonus. I mean, it just sticks out. The more intersecting trails, the more areas where you have maybe a big trail and smaller trails go off of it. That's the good stuff, where coyote, deer, to go along a trail, they're going to take trails the least amount of resistance. You know, they're trying to save energy by not pushing through weeds, not pushing through deep snow. If there's something's plowed, they're going to take that during the winter. They're not going to burn calories or what have you. So yeah, trails is a good one. Intersecting trails, more trails the better. All right, natural bridges, natural, you know, you got man-made bridges and you got natural bridges. I showed you that shot of me crossing all unshore-footed for a reason. It's because you could either go through the water, the swamp. There's a pond here and a pond on the other side, or you could take the natural bridge, which a lot of animals will do. You know, if it's winter especially, they want to keep warm. They don't have to go through the water. They don't have to make a lot of noise if they're hunting. And it's a nice silent way to get across some land obstacles. You know, these bridges here, you want to look for, this is a small one, but if you get into a big ravine, a big creek, I'll show you one here in a sec. If you get one that goes across a ravine, you can get everything across that. You know, you can get coyote, fox, bobcat, whatever. But that being said, it's really easy for these guys to cross this way. Look for it. It's a funneling mechanism, because if it's a big ravine, they don't want to have to go down and go back up. Obviously, they're going to take the path of least resistance, which is across the tree. Now, looking for signs, a lot of times before and after, sometimes in the middle, they'll go to the bathroom. You know, possum and raccoon are notorious for that. They'll empty their bladder one way on the either side of it. But it's one thing, just another little trick up your sleeves to get some kind of sign, some kind of identification. And if it's muddy, you can look on, like if it's a bare log, you can look for tracks there. You can look for hair if there's sticks coming up and all that kind of stuff. But they definitely have to take this, or they're going to go through a lot of water, get cold, burn calories, that kind of thing. So hope this helps. I'll show you another, I think I already mentioned this, I'll show you another land bridge that's a lot bigger, and it's more enticing, I think, to them as well. All right, guys, got behind us a natural bridge. Tree fell down across a ravine, really steep, got water here, so definitely going to be used by the animals. The steeper the ravine, the bigger the obstacle, the more likely that animals are going to use it. And if there's not a lot of them around, that kind of pinpoints, that funnels, that pinpoints things right to where you want to be. And just a nice place to pick up some more actual tracking. Down below here, we got in the mud, we got raccoon tracks, I think. I'm gonna have to look closer. And a bunch of animal tracks. Off to the left is another land bridge, natural one that just fell down this year too. So we got two. Now that's not as ideal, but you can take as much as you can get, right? Guys, speaking of that, we just had a squirrel cross the way. Look at that squirrel over there. He just crossed that land bridge right in front of me. He's not afraid of me at all. Oh my gosh, look at that. He's coming down to get some water. So again, these bridges are awesome. All right, guys, this is an area where you can see some paw prints, and that more than likely raccoon from what I'm picking up, but they're older, kind of washed away. See if I can get you down in a couple of these areas here. That kind of stuff. Right there is a good one. See these little paw prints. Now these are older because you can just tell they're just kind of washed away by the river and by the creek, but at least it's something to give you a rough indication that there's animal life. Now if this was really heavily used, it would just be a complete mess. It would be just an absolute mess, but it's easy to spot from up above at a creek or something like that because it just looks like paw prints everywhere. All right, guys, that is an awesome land bridge right there. Straight across, you got a big drop off. Yeah, that works. All right, guys, it's bright out. Got the sunglasses. Don't necessarily like these, but hey, whatever. Like having them on. We had a snowstorm. This is kind of version 2. We stopped at the land bridges, natural bridges yesterday a little bit. And, you know, being that there's a snowstorm that came in out of nowhere, it's awesome for tracking. So this snow's, you know, less than a day old. So any kind of tracks we find, they're new, they're good. And it doesn't get any easier. If you can find tracks in the snow, use it. Or right after a snowstorm, go. That's fresh tracks. There's not a lot of science behind it. You don't have to worry about it. So anyway, off to my left, I have a drainage pipe going under a road, and that's a really good spot to look for small animals. Coyotes, bigger animals, medium-sized animals generally go over. But when you're looking at drainage ditches or tubes or pipes that circulate or push water, we have a farming field here, runoff goes under there, under this road back here, and then it actually goes off into the swamp. So it's a nice way, travel mechanism, inconspicuous. These guys will use this all the time. So anyway, let's get rocking and rolling. We'll see if we can find some tracks here. All right, so found a tunnel here, man-made tunnel. We got a road above us. We got a cornfield behind us. We got some swamps off to the west here. So a lot of this area gets flooded and the water obviously goes under here, but this is a great funneling technique for animals to kind of burrow in or be able to use waterways and that for transportation. Instead of going above on a road, they'll go underneath. You could locate, go to a lot of different construction places, bridges, anywhere where that's happening. You're going to usually find tracks in snow, wet, muddy area, easy to locate, easy to find. You kind of see their numbers, and you really don't even need to go down in it. If you can see it from a distance and it's just all mud and it's not a mess, then you're probably not getting a lot of traffic there. Just a FYI. So nice area. You know, if you had heavy traffic here, you might put a blind off to the west or east of it and just wait in the mornings. More than likely they're going to be using it for moving back and forth. So anyway, we'll get moving. All right, guys, probably seen that little snippets of me stepping over stuff. One of my favorite tracking mechanisms is stepping sticks. So stepping stick is any kind of obstacle, any kind of barrier. It could be a fence, it could be a barbed wire fence, anything along those lines. They give a mechanism for the animal to rear up, put some energy in before they cross the barrier, and then when they land. So think of a deer and a big tall fence. It has to put energy into its feet before it actually hits the other side of the ground in that. So that's a nice point here. So this has an added benefit, I don't know if you can see under here, of two. So bigger animal's going to go over top, it's going to land out here. Smaller animal you can track underneath that part. So that's a nice thing if you're looking for multiple tracks or you get lost with one or the other. You can look how far out the tracks are. Obviously the bigger the animal, the more spacious the track markings. Another trick in which some guys will do, old trappers used to put down ash, and they would actually put in the trail, much like snow, just put it out there and maybe come back the next day or two and check out, see if something's been by, if they don't have any leads, if they don't have any moisture or anything to go off of. But yeah, stepping sticks is a big one. There's ways to set it up. You can put in your own stepping stick, a big log, small log, and a trail, and then put that ash down or water, make it sloopy if you're going to be back there the next day. The benefit of that is you can kind of put 2 or 3, so the animal kind of puts his foot in between each one. I know trappers used to do that where they put 2 or 3 down and kind of, you know, make the animal put it in their paw in a specific spot to catch them. But for anybody, if you don't have a trail cam or you don't want to use one, you want to come back, maybe it's illegal, these are really good spots because generally they just tear up the place. They also leave fur underneath, above and underneath. So that is another mechanism to kind of figure out what kind of animal is in the area. But definitely stepping sticks are everywhere. Generally, I like to, there's a saying, match the hatch, which fishing term, you want to match what the animal will eat or their size, right? Size of the fly, size of the bait to whatever they're doing. So stepping stick, this is going to be a big animal that comes over the top, medium-sized big animal, obviously underneath, smaller animal. If you create a stepping stick in a trail or some sort, smaller stick, smaller animal, bigger animal's not going to really care all that much, but it works. See if it works for you guys. Okay guys, small little thing here. Here's looks like a coyote track right in here. It's kind of a soupy mess right now, but here's the log, and here's kind of the natural trail that they're using. Anyway, you can kind of see if you go up a little bit how all the trees and stuff are matched down, are just pushed around. So this could be definitely beaver are taking this. Looks like a coyote was here recently, just rough estimates. And yeah, that kind of stepping stick. You notice right here there's more of an impact. So this guy, however he is, he went over this, so he pushed off, couldn't get a track here, but definitely in this area there's definitely tracks. Obviously identification's a little rough right now. Okay, so a lot of times you just walk right past things if you don't really recognize it, what's going on. Anyway, I was on the gravel road right behind us a couple weeks back. I get some footage of some beaver. This area hasn't had beaver in it for years, but one thing that jumped out immediately as I was walking by, most of the forest at this time of year is kind of a dark gray, almost dead look, but this here is a nice bright kind of brown look. So I immediately seen it a couple weeks back. I started looking in the waterways more. Now, normally I wouldn't look in the water, some of these waterways for beaver, but it was just something that this was a dead key. And there's other signs in here once I started looking closer, but the stuff really jumps out at you when you're looking for it. So any of the kind of animal signs, you're talking markings on trees, droppings, obviously the tracks, the dens and all that. But this is stuff is easy to spot. If you got a beaver in the area, it's real easy because they start just crushing the trees. And they're kind of more of a nuisance because it's always a battle between, beavers and deer because they both like trees, but one of them's killing the trees. The other one wants them to live there. But yeah, this is good. I got that video footage. It's like 15-20 seconds on Instagram. I might put it up on YouTube as well. But it just allows you, when you kind of recognize this kind of stuff, it allows you to kind of keep an eye out, keep looking for it. Anyway, good stuff. All right, so we got multiple tracks here that intersect. We got a stepping stone I'm kind of sitting on, funneling into one trail. This is awesome. This is a good sign. Good signs no matter who you are, right? So you got 3 or 4 trails intersecting, going into one. Right behind you, I showed you the video of the beaver gnawing on the tree, those tree marks. So putting all this together, I mean, it makes things really easy when you get multiple signs. Now, you don't always get like a perfect print. That's the thing. That's what makes it so difficult. People kind of give up. It's like, well, I can't identify it. Well, if you get a print, then you got to look it up in a book and you got to do all these other things. It makes it difficult. I appreciate you. If you guys have watched this far, it's a long video. I don't ever want to make one this long again because it's a lot of work, but you get the waterways, you get all this piece together, and that's what it's about. Hopefully you followed me along on this. I can say some of the things here is scouting during the middle of the day. You want to scout during the middle of the day. You don't want to go real early or real late at night or later because animals hunt during that time and their scent is very good. Their ability to pick up scent. It's what we call in trapping the scent plume, where you have animals that your scent is left on logs and everything. It's more prevalent and stronger during the morning and at night because they're all, it has to do with the heat and the cold of, putting things to the ground. So animals obviously do that, in the mornings and in the evenings, they're actually moving around. So if you go up to a den, if you go up to anything like that, you're more probable to scare it away. And believe me, I've been busted on this. Just a word of advice, it's going to not be fun for you. Let's say you find that perfect fox den and you scare them out of that. And you've done all this work. You've gone through hours trying to figure out where they're at, and man, you got it. And all of a sudden they move on and then you're starting from square one. So do yourself a favor, go 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Be cognizant of your scent. Don't bathe in gasoline. Don't do these things. That was a total different video I could put out about scent control. I mean, this is a deep subject. It's not easy, so I appreciate you guys hanging in there. And want to conclude up, probably get in the car, a little less windy, starting to pick up around here, and we can kind of wrap this thing up. All right, back in the car, getting out of the wind. That annoys me. Looking at or having to deal with the wind in the videos. I apologize for any of that stuff. I'm going to figure that out. That's been my nemesis here. Anyway, yeah, a lot of material, woodsmanship, tracking. The tracking identification piece is just a small part of the woodsmanship, and I think a lot of photographers are going to want it, need it. Congratulations if you sat through this. 99% of the people aren't. It's just long. It's very, very detailed, minute kind of stuff. And to be honest, I know a lot of wildlife photographers that really don't know any of this stuff. But you know, they don't really know a whole lot about the animals either, so they prefer to go to the big parks. Now, you know, Yellowstone, Glacier, you know, go to Africa kind of thing, take those trips. You can buy them all inclusive. They got the cars, the trucks, they just put you on a tripod and you shoot. And you shoot, sadly, in the middle of the day when the lighting's horrible, but you can kind of tell. I know some people don't have access or don't have the ability to move around, but if you do, I think a lot of photographers, just like me, you don't have access to the big parks, and you need a way to get close to the animals, and they're pressured. And that's part of what this channel is about. Hopefully getting close to animals that are somewhat pressured, because believe me, it's a challenge. This is a hunting area. I have to use everything I got to get close to the wildlife, because they're obviously afraid. And you know, camouflage and stalking, everything's going to be a part of this channel. And yeah, I appreciate it. So if you like this stuff, subscribe, hit the notification button. Got some other videos coming around the pipe turn. We're talking, you know, deer and squirrel. I think the next one will be a squirrel. And I know what you're thinking, oh man, not another squirrel video. Every wildlife photographer. Well, this is going to be different. We're going to talk about getting into the forest, trying to get the forest back to nature, back to this peaceful thing as soon as possible. You know, the problem with a guy like myself or you know, you're 200 pounds, you might have a lot of gear with you, you're going to make a lot of noise, and that stuff in forest, man, that really scares things. So if you can get it and you can really get in and get nature back and working to where you weren't even there, that's all the better. And so there's some techniques we can apply to make that happen. So if you're in a ghillie suit or you're in something there, it's like you're invisible. Hopefully 5, 10, 15 minutes later, you walk in, you're productive. So that's part of what this process is, or what the videos will be about. And anyway, if you don't like my channel, hey, there's other guys out there, Joe Morano, Tron Westby, Simon Wanting, I think, and of course famous Morton Helmer. Those guys, it's a lot of work what those guys do. So hey, you don't even have to support me, just support them, because it's all good. We all learn off each other. And until next time, guys, appreciate it, and keep moving.